What's up? What's up? What is up? We back in the building, baby. You know what it is. Last week we took a summer Friday. Y'all ain't gonna be the only ones taking vacations. The Ball Hog Sports Talk crew is also gonna make sure we add some balance to our lives. But with no further ado, we is back, the entire crew. And y'all see we in all black. We're gonna get to that later. That's just how we feeling right now. Today's episode is going by the title of The Chaos in Clarity. And whether you want to accept it or not, clarity being truth, clarity being revelations in such that light has been shined on a particular matter. A lot of times when you are brought to the fountain of truth, there's some chaos in the journey to get there. And we're going to talk about that chaos today. If you have never been a part of this experience that is known as the Ball Hog Sports Talk, welcome aboard. Fasten your seatbelt. It is going to be a fascinating show. We took a week off because of the summer, our summer Friday, but we are back. That means we got even more to do. We got the same amount of time to do it. So make sure that you get you one of them tall cups of coffee. Pour anything you want in it. The whole crew is back in the building. We're going to get it done today, y'all. I'm telling you, we're going to get it done today. It's the Ball Hog Sports Talk, where sports, business, and entertainment collide. Some businessmen get together to discuss sports in an entertaining fashion. We back, y'all. The Chaos and Clarity episode is coming to you in a minute. So let's go.
Let's go. One of these days, we have to click this.
I guess. Maybe.
We're multitasking.
We are multitasking. Let's do it then. Wake up, wake up, wake up, and stay woke. Because this is the Ball Hog Sports Talk with your boy, B. Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South. This is the place where sports, business, and entertainment collide. And we're going to give it to you rough, rugged, and raw. So come get you a spoonful, like some grits with butter and salt. You know how we do it in the South, y'all. Make sure you do not get caught in your feelings. Strap on your seatbelt and enjoy the ride. Come on, let's go, 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 go. You know what it is. You know what it is. We back in the building, man. It's another Friday, another opportunity to get together and record the Ball Hog Sports Talk in the building. Back from a week hiatus. We was off, but now we back on. It is where sports, business, and entertainment collide. It is the Ball Hog Sports Talk, and it is the Chaos and Clarity episode. We got from the Middle Coast, the man, the myth, the legend, thou who shall intergalactically be known as and respected as the Big Flo shows in the building. What's up, Big Flo?
What's good? What's good, America? How's everybody doing today? Friday coming, another one of these Fridays. Almost at football season. Real excited. Start to get itchy right now when August hits. It gets real humid, so that's part of the reason why I'm scratching. But football's starting to come. You can start to say, man.
What's the other reason? I'm confused. You said that's part of the reason I'm scratching.
It's because it's hot outside. But but football coming up, man. So you just start, woo, you know how the hypes be in South Florida when they get ready for that crack. That football is my crack. So you know what I mean. I don't know what crack is like, but
well, beam me up, Scotty. Let's go ahead and get some crack because the football is.
Sometimes you just talk yourself into a dead end. You just gotta.
This is going nowhere fast.
Going nowhere fast. In addition, we have from the East Coast, Mr. Boston himself, Beantown was blessed to have this gentleman associate himself with everything known as Boston. But today he's coming to you from the Ball Hog Sports Talk. Mama, the man, the myth, the legend, ETP is in the building, y'all.
Happy Friday. Just trying to stay cool on the hottest month in the history of the modern world.
Yeah,
hottest month on record in 120,000 years, apparently.
There's chaos and clarity because for those who question whether or not global warming was real, There's some chaos. There's some hot ass days right now. It's like 120 degrees in Arizona right now, man. What's going on? There is clarity. There's something going on, y'all. I ain't no mathematician, no rocket scientist or nothing like
I'm
that.
not a weatherman.
But it's the hottest. Say that one time. The hottest summer.
The hottest month. July is the hottest month on the planet in the history of recorded temperatures, I guess.
Oh,
I don't know who was
we're having
recorded
the worst?
temperatures 120,000 years ago, but we that's the official word. Whatever,
Yeah.
however that's calculated. It's hot.
It's hot. It's hot in here. It's hot in here. It must be global warming in the atmosphere. Y'all remember that cheer in football?
No.
I digress. Sorry. You talking about football and crack. That was a normal cheer.
Is that before you used to say get your hat and coat and leave in the same
Yeah,
game?
no, you started with it's hot in here.
But then at the end they say get your hat, coat, and leave. So you guys didn't know. It gets cold when you lose. Okay.
So, welcome back, man. I missed you, brothers, man. I missed the audience. Like we ask you every week, humbly, please like, please comment, please share, please tag a friend, please tag a foe, please tag anybody you know. Please subscribe to both the YouTube channel and to the podcast. All right, let's hop in, man. The chaos and clarity. We all are fathers. We all are people that are closely connected to another human being. Our life is revolved around these human beings. Our heartstrings get pulled. I am, as a father, sitting here today very happy because there's a lot of chaos and clarity in the sense that I had to get clarity as to whether or not my young athlete, my son, had that dog in him. You know what I mean? You know what? Had that dog in you, man. Because when things are going well and kids are performing on an elite level from a sports standpoint, which I got to see for both my sons, it's like, yeah, it's cool, but you're front running until you have to overcome some adversity. So my son broke his foot, and I talked about here. I came on this show almost crying the day he broke his foot because we had a big basketball summer planned. He got good news this week and is given the green light to return back to activities and got a good x-ray. But I posted something and I talked about it, and I said that, you don't really know someone until you walk a mile in their shoes. And I teased that I gave my size 13s, had a few left. I gave them to my son, and he's been walking a mile in my shoes. But when the doctor asked me,
was that before or after he broke his foot?
This was before he broke his foot. I gave him the shoes. Then he only used one shoe.
Sounds like a sabotage to me, dog.
You think
like
maybe
it's your fault?
He was barefoot when he broke his foot.
That sound like a
He was
suit.
walking towards
like
the
suit,
shoe,
baby.
He was walking towards the shoe. That's the problem. He figured it out. You owe him an apology.
I might.
Everybody who you cussed out in the house that day, an apology, because it's your fault.
I was very hot that day. That's why I kicked everybody out. Like, Martin, get out. Everybody get out. You know what I mean? But when the doctor asked me, man, when we were in the last visit, the doctor asked me, said, hey, as an athlete, former athlete, did you ever break anything? And my son's attention shifted to me to see how I was going to answer that question. We had that conversation. It's just not something you normally talk about. Hey, I broke XYZ. And I had to answer no. And so in that moment, I realized I had not walked in his shoes in terms of this journey to overcome the injury and the confidence and all of that. So I talked about him being sort of my hero in that moment. While it was a moment for me, I share it to now talk about the moment that the James family had this week, because our world revolves around these kids, our heartstrings. So you can imagine him getting a call saying that his son had a cardiac arrest situation at practice and what that would do for a dad. And so I pause here. The chaos and clarity, while I talk about it in terms of my son overcoming the adversity, I'll say also for the James family, because while I've been on the other side of being a James fan, maybe a James hater, we want to offer our deepest, not even condolences, because it all's well that ends well, but we empathize and sympathize with someone that had to go through that. Imagine that call, hey man, Bronny's had a cardiac arrest. And so, I know he's posted something and says the family's all together, but we put these athletes on this pedestal such that I think a lot of times we disconnect from the reality of that's that man's son. He's a dad. He's a family man. I know what you guys thought about it. Wanted to start here because we got some other places to go, but definitely keeping Bronny in our thoughts and prayers. I know that there's going to be conspiracy theorists that have a lot to say and attribute to why that happened. But a 19-year-old having a cardiac arrest is tough from a medical standpoint, but the emotional baggage of that as a dad, as a mom, as his brother, made me want to just start the show there and say he's in our thoughts and prayers. I don't know if anyone even wants to chime in, but
I'll just say, death is the great equalizer. I don't care how rich and famous you are, how successful you've been in your life. When somebody close to you or your life is in danger and you're faced with death, you give it all up. So I can only imagine what he's feeling right now. Who cares about being the scoring leader? Who cares about this? You don't lose your son. So I'm happy to see that he's back home. Obviously he's going to get the best medical attention. I don't know if they're talking about putting a defibrillator in him or whatever they're going to do, but I'm just glad that they reacted well, and it seems like it's going to have a happy ending at the end. So I'm happy for that.
Yeah. ETP, I don't know if you want to weigh in before I hop into something else, man. But in terms of like getting that call, but also just like you're a 19-year-old, bro. Like 18. I gave him one. Sorry. 18-year-old. What's going on? Well, I mean, medically, and let's not speculate. Let me take a step back. Let me not do that. But it's just tough to hear a young man going through that at the height of his career. The conversation for the last, I don't know how many months, if not years, and let's call it years, has been, all right, so Bronny's going to do 1 year, and we just got to figure out where LeBron James is going to play. They'll be the first ever father-son duo to play on the same team. That has been almost solely every time the name Bronny comes up, it's normally some version of that. And here he is dealing with heart arrest, the cardiac arrest situation. Just seems it's a complete opposite extreme of what the Bronny conversation was, only a week ago. ETP, I'll give you the last word on it before we hop into a few more things.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it just shows life's not promised. Enjoy your time because you don't punch the clock on your own terms. And glad that he's recovered. Hopefully, he's recovers to full health. That's what a lot of people were talking about is just automatically like, well, will he ever play basketball again at this stage?
No.
And as a parent, it's like that's not the first priority, and it shouldn't be, in my opinion, in anybody's mind. Just hopefully that he's fully healthy and can live a fruitful life. And basketball is just a game, and whether that's his path or not, the good thing is that he didn't see his last day yet, and hopefully he lives a long, healthy life, and we can all just hope the same. But ultimately, does it, like Flo said, doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter your status. We're all humans and we're all vulnerable, and we can't choose when we decide to leave the earth. So value the time that you have.
Fair. Well stated, man. Big Flo show, only because we're talking about that connection with father and son. We're talking about sort of that chaos and the clarity. And the last time we were here, you and I did a condensed version of an interview where we talked about the Northwestern Wildcat situation. It has since escalated significantly beyond football, throughout every sport on campus, beyond just the campus. It has now gone into the ever so litigious judicial system in America. Everybody and anyone who had experience has spoken up and has gotten an invitation to continue speaking up. I'm assuming that the athletic heads are going to be chopped off for this, because just like Pat Fitzgerald got fired because not that he known, but maybe they got that catch-all, should have known. Other people's heads will be chopped off for this. It directly impacts you, and you talked about sort of this idea of hazing and whether or not your son had been in that situation. We asked and answered, but I want to tee this up because the transition is you have this hazing thing that's not just Northwestern football into other sports from Northwestern. That's not just Northwestern. Now they're talking about more broadly in the NCAA and hazing. And so the chaos and clarity, the clarity being that hazing exists. It's a thing. It's a rite of passage in most sports on college campuses. It runs rampant. The actual choice of hazing in Northwestern, it was the dry humping and other things that have been well documented. Allegedly. Sorry. There you go. I like that, boy. You got to put on your Northwestern hat when you say that. I mean, allegedly. But the choice of hazing, we got her handy. I like that. That's what I'm talking about. Represent, baby. The choice of hazing, aside, there's clarity now, right? And in getting there, there's been some chaos. We're seeing the chaos and that clarity that people have come to terms with. Hazing exists on college campuses. Where do you think this goes from here? I know that from a societal standpoint, we were taken aback, or at least the virtue signalers made it sound like and seem like they were taken aback. But a society responds to this in a way that now, is this an outlier? Or are we really dealing with the chaos and the clarity that this exists and it runs rampant? What say you?
Well, the way that this thing has been handled, both by the media and the universities when they had opportunity, has been completely chaotic. And I think what's clear is that this is not an isolated incident and problem. If you go by the allegations and you choose to believe everything that you've read and the severity of what it's read, obviously there's some disturbing things that you could say went on. I'm so biased and so inside, it's kind of hard for me to put my thought there. So we're just going to go on assumptions, assuming that it's not as bad as said or as bad as said. Well, I think we're finding out, at Northwestern University, they throw the baseball coach kind of in there as kind of not said, just he was such a jerk that all of his assistant coaches quit on him at a tournament. He coached the rest of the season by himself. Mm-hmm. Most of his team entered the portal. They just had to get rid of him. He was a bad hire. A lot of those people came back, and they're now going to stay at Northwestern. So, you look at that. Then they had a volleyball girl she's suing. She said she was hazed because she broke COVID protocol. She got COVID, and then the team voted that she had to do suicides, which sounds bad. We call the guy probably had to change the name, not call it suicides anymore. But she had to run suicides, and I guess she hurt herself when she had to dive on the ground or something like that. But I think what we needed to take a step back and realize, we all agree that things can go too far, and we don't want people to be sexually assaulted or anything like that. I mean, that's no need to try to justify it. But I think we're starting to get so far away from kind of earning your stripes and making things hard. I once sat on a panel at Northwestern parents and talked, and so one of the parents asked, what happens when your kid gets here and he's not as fast, he's not as good, he's not as talented as they said. Now the coaches aren't talking to him, and they're not, treating him the same way they treated him recruited. And I just said, your kid just joined $1 billion sports industry, right? 3% of the athletes out there, less than 0.1% of just the population gets to go play college sport. It's not going to be all puppies and rainbows. You know what I mean? How
about glitter? No puppies, no rainbow. Can we get glitter? Can we get
glitter? It's not all glitter and bubble gum. You know what I mean? So we're going to go out there and, this is a very big boy, big girl organization. People's jobs and livelihoods are on the line based off of what 18 to 22-year-olds do. Argument for payment, but pause. We'll go back to that. And I just think that we're so there, but we're in a country of fake outrage. And the reason why I say that is, I've read things in chat rooms, people talking about, I don't know how I'm going to be sitting in the stands looking down, knowing that there's these sexual offenders that are down there. And when I think about that, pause for a minute and say, all right, well, you're in the stands, you're looking down, and you think that you're looking at sexual offenders, but you're also thinking about victims. Is there any compassion for, if you believe that there's sexual offenders, you believe that there's victims down there, do you have any compassion for them? Or are we just focusing on the offenders? Because now we look at it with a broad brush and say, this is terrible, and all these sports teams are doing all these terrible things. But I call it fake outrage because we're not talking really too much about who we think the victims are. It's one thing when you have a sports team that's out there, getting in bar fights, assaulting women, doing different things like that, where you're like, these people are a menace and they should be stopped. I get it. But you're talking about these self-contained organizations where people are maybe allegedly doing this or doing that, and we focus on it. We're so mad. It's really, do you hate this situation, or are you really just mad at the people? It's kind of like the whole take a knee situation.
Right.
Everyone's so mad, and they're saying, "Oh, these athletes are mad. They're complaining, and they're rich. They're doing whatever." They don't even take the time to realize that they're not complaining about how they're treated. They're complaining how others are treated. They don't take the time to realize that, okay, you shouldn't kneel during the flag. Okay, well, there's a million things that we do with the flag every day that are distinctly written that we're not supposed to do with the flag at sporting events, and it doesn't do it. So we're just in a country of fake outrage, and we get mad about different things to show we really just didn't like these people anyway. So I just look at it and say, hey, listen, it's getting everywhere. I don't want to see kids mistreated, but I do like the fact that, cynically, I like the fact that there's being an exposure, that there's a lot of stuff going on in a lot of places. I think a lot of people, I talked to some of my friends that were in fraternities, and they talk about, Google it, elephant walks and different things people had to do in bars, and different things that my wife would tell me that happened to guys, and they claimed a girlfriend in school, and people getting tied to trees and throwing nasty things on them. There's 18 to 22-year-old men, they do some real fucked up shit. Let's just be honest, right? We just
18 to 20. Just to interject, they ain't got to be men. 18 to 22-year-olds.
Women potentially too, but like that's not, man. The
specific.
testosterone's there. You don't have your parents watch you, or whatever. Left to your own devices. Been known to do some real foul stuff, and people that haven't been a part of that, you haven't been in a fraternity, they haven't been on a collegiate sports team, they haven't been anything at that level, don't have any idea of the mentality. And it's kind of one of those things where it's cringeworthy, where you really, someone was telling me some stories that happened in the Notre Dame locker room just the other day. I ran into one of our old teammates, and he told me something he saw, and I was like, yeesh. And, at the time, people think things are funny that just aren't funny when you're paying bills and you're older. But we're trying to make sense out of a life style that a lot of people didn't live. So it does sound horrible, and it is horrible in many extents. But just realize you're dealing with a lot of goofy young dudes that think it's different. So I don't know. I'm glad it's getting chaotic, because it's getting clear that it's not just Northwestern. So go Cats. Let's go.
Yeah. But you raised something, and thank you to my man Papo. What's up, Papo? Papo said kids are soft now, period. Mm-hmm. And as you raise this description of, it sounds cringeworthy to a community and to an audience of people that have never been in that environment, whether it be hazing from a fraternity and sorority standpoint, whether it be air quote hazing from a major collegiate sports standpoint. Not to get all legalese, but the reasonable person standard from a legal framework is a reasonable person in those shoes. And so the chaos and clarity to me, right, is that now we have this clarity, this truth that these things are going on. The chaos is being judged and evaluated by people that have never been in those shoes. I'll go to you on an ETP. We're hearing about hazing. We're hearing about these, what you would call really messed up activities for 18 to 22-year-olds across college campuses, a lot of times related to, but also not limited to, sports. Is this much to do about nothing? Is it, as Papo said, just kids are soft these days? Because on the other side of that, it ain't just the kids, it's the parents. And then I'm gonna give my opinion on it, but I throw it to you first, ETP.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's just really hard. I can't speak to any of these cases. I don't know what everybody went through. We can all impose our judgment of what we think is excessive and what we think is acceptable. And in all of these situations, once you are part of an institution, especially when there's a lot at stake, there are requirements that are needed in order to ensure commitment, loyalty, alignment, right? So there's all these tests of will and tests of your determination and tests of your capabilities that happen to ensure that when you go out on the field, whether you go out into the workforce, like in an institutionalized situation, you have to know that you can trust the person next to you, and you have to know that that you're all on the same page and that you are basically joined as a collective. How you do that is a subjective measure, right? And so that's, I think, the point in the challenges of what's happening now. And as we progress as a society, things are becoming, one, more transparent. There's two, more questions being raised about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And like, look, I played sports. I've been in various situations where there's general elements of hazing that are character building, that are unifying. I've seen things that are divisive, that I see because the person that received it created some level of animosity, resentment. It's a very subjective concept. So
Fair.
ultimately, it's really hard. I don't have an opinion about what's right, what's wrong, who's guilty, who's innocent. But the challenge is when you want to be part of an organization, there's a culture within that organization. And sometimes there are toxic elements to that organization. And if you want to be a part of it,
Fair.
You have to subscribe to it, or you have to succumb to it, or you have to be a recipient of the rites of passage in order to be a part of it. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong, but ultimately, I think what you guys were saying, when there's people outside of the culture, outside of the organization that are imposing their judgment, because if you've never been on a football field, if you've never been in the military, if you've never been on a police force, like there's so many different organizations that require, like sometimes if you're not unified, the consequences are great. Granted, it might just be losing a game, or it could be that you lose a partner, right? And so
Fair.
In those situations, there are higher stakes, and sometimes there are higher requirements of how to build camaraderie, how to build unity, but it's really, really hard because everybody has different thresholds for pain. Everybody has different commitments to their collective, and everybody else reacts differently. So I guess long-winded way of saying, like, I don't have an opinion.
It sounds like you're saying it's a case-by-case situation, which I gotta respect the case-by-case situation.
Can I comment on what he had to say real quick?
Yeah, before you do, let me just say this. I put this comment up. I'm throwing it right back to you. Papo says, and to your point, he says facts because in the Marines, your life literally depends on the man next to you in war. So the consequence of not being unified is literally life and death. To your point, ETP, where the reasonable person might think some of the things that Marines endure on a daily basis that are outside their normal program, that at least by definition in this Northwestern case or Northwestern allegations would be hazing, creates a unified situation that they need to have inherent in protecting life. Right. So I'm not the reasonable person to judge that because I've never been a Marine. I've never been on the front lines of war, right? And so that I just thank you for sharing that, Papo. My bad, Big Flo. Back to you.
No, I think you actually added to what he said that I want to agree with, and I can appreciate the fact that you take yourself out of that and say, I've never been a Marine. I don't really know what it takes. And he says, I don't really have an opinion because this doesn't really affect me. Now, let's say this. I don't believe that my son was impacted. If my son had been impacted in a way, individually,
you might think
individually, I know I would have an opinion that might be different. But as a person that's close to it, and I take a step back and realize, again, for everyone listening, I'm not justifying holding men down and dry humping them. I don't even know why you would want to do that, but that's different. But like the bottom line is, like, when you start to look at this, and when I say it comes fake outrage, is you look at the country. We hold people who went to BUDS training or whatever, SEALs training, to the highest degree of this is awesome. If you don't think
absolutely,
if you don't think that's somewhat of hazing, again, they're not doing anything sexual in nature to you, but the things that they make you endure, we do it. People go through. Notre Dame has a fantasy camp where rich men who are successful and gone through life pay thousands of dollars to come and get treated like crap and yelled at and put through a 2 days because they're so and they admire what it would take to be a Notre Dame player. Every year somebody blows out an ACL, they do whatever, and they don't care because they wish they could see what it was like to go through it. People want to, how many times do you meet people that try to tell you they came from nothing, they struggled, they came up, and you find out this person went to private school, went to Pembroke. You know what I mean? Everyone in this country wants to feel like I struggled and I suffered and I've been through it because we all want to show how tough we are and do whatever. But then if it goes too far, we're completely outraged as if we haven't built a society based on toughness or built on trying to endure stuff and overcoming adversity. Fair. We're completely outraged, and we can't believe this ever would happen. And I just go back to saying, like, why are you so mad? Like, this doesn't affect you specifically. And I'm not saying not to be compassionate, but you're so upset, you're so mad. You really are more mad because you just don't like the people doing it. You don't like the athletes. You don't like that. I think so. I think the people that – go ahead.
Yeah, no, so it's a really interesting, because to your point, like, even, I mean, there's these Minnesota allegations and all, like, there's all these allegations coming up. And to your point, sometimes it could be personal, right? It's to say, okay, well, now I have something on you and I'm going to expose it. But the fake outrage thing, it's hard for me to reconcile that, because at the end of the day, like, if you talk about, I mean, there's a case, I don't remember the details of it, but I think it was a few months ago, there was a Marine or Navy SEAL that ended up dying, right? Like in training, and as a result of whatever their practices were. And I don't know if it was excessive. I don't know if it was just him, having a health condition, whatever it was. But
the fact that it's dangerous as hell training.
Yeah. Of course. I don't know. But what I'm saying, I guess why I say I question whether it's fake outrage, like, the point is things start to feel like they're being on a path of crossing a line that you can't come back from. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that that's like fake outrage, but again, it just becomes a subjective, like, where is the line? Everybody has different levels of what that line is. And to your point, like, if your son was affected by any of this, it doesn't automatically mean your opinion would be, okay, everybody's guilty. You might actually say, yeah, well, you got to earn your right to be a part of that team. I'm not saying that you would or you wouldn't, but there's a gray area and it's very subjective. So ultimately you could be outraged, or you could say, you got to toughen up, homie.
Yeah. And some, again, there's a lot of people you talk to and they have different views of whether they've been through it. Some people, like Bobby's been through fraternity. I don't know what it went with him because he went grad. I know that's a little softer, but my bad. So, I don't know if he would have the same type of, I'm sorry, we disrespect your frat. But
the best part is he can't say anything.
He just gotta
which is cannot confirm nor deny anything.
He just gotta sit there and be mad.
It's lose. I'll say this. First of all, Cross's undergrad. Second of all,
I was a star athlete. So
second of all, I will say this is that there are certain things that I cannot disclose, but that other people should not want to be disclosed. That's where I'm struggling with the whole thing, is that we're so into we're the information age. We want to know everything about every
we have the right to know everything.
Right. And I'm like, no, you don't have a right to know. If you really want to know, right? Like, under different circumstances,
it's a privilege you have to earn to know.
Yeah, if you really want to know what it took to be an Omega man, go through the process.
Yeah.
And then you'll know. But then after you go through the process, and the same challenge that we're having at a fraternal level, because fraternities are under this cloud, this dark cloud of potential litigation as well. Is that if you really want to know, you want to be a part of something, then you got to be willing to take the step that is a drastic step to endure all the things that people who want to be Omega men endure, and substitute Omega man for Northwestern football player, substitute Northwestern football player for Northwestern volleyball player. And I think the fact that the court of public opinion and the voice is very loud coming from outside of people that are going through that path is the only thing I struggle with. And here's my thing. We might disagree a little bit on this ETP. And I'll say this, because when I posted the post about my son yesterday, the last part of the post, it was a long post, but it says, adversely knocked on my deuce, it's my son's door. And now he knows he's built to fight forevermore. People that wanted to be Omega men and wanted to go down that path and wanted to wear those letters and represent everything that those letters represent, right? We welcomed the challenge. I am grateful that I was chosen to go through that challenge. And I think the same thing is true with a lot of these programs. Consider it, whether it be football, or whatever, is that we welcomed the, all of the steps that it took to get to where that you were trying to get to. And my last statement on this before we move on is, bluntly, I think we have a society that has miscalculated the idea of equity and fairness and justice. Because as I told one of the parents that called me after, a good guy, like the guy, a few days of practice, he didn't think his son was getting enough reps, but it's like 2 days of practice or not getting enough touches. And there's someone that I love. So I had a very direct conversation with him. And that direct conversation was, we have to stop telling our kids this lie that life is fair. Life ain't fair. That last paragraph about my son, I'm thankful that he found out at 12 years old that life ain't fair. And as I'm telling this dad, I'm like, I had this conversation with my son this morning, right? On that particular day, it was a little later in the day. I had just had the conversation with my son that morning. Stop believing this lie that life is fair. Because the quicker you accept that life ain't fair, the quicker you can be the type of person that gets up after being knocked down. The quicker you can be someone that brushes yourself off after you it's almost absolutely certain is going to happen after you've been mistreated, after you have been unfairly, counted out, whatever the case might be. The quicker we accept the fact that life ain't fair, I think the better it is. And that's just my challenge with this situation, is that we are acting like life is fair. Look, when Coach Holtz walked into the room, what did we do, Big Flo? It's not fair, but it was what everyone had to do in order to play football at the University of Notre Dame. And now that might be considered hazing.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but there's a lot of false parallels I would have to call out from my vantage point. Like, one, your example with your son, like, that's not fabricated, right? Like, that's adversity that was happenstance. It happened to him. He broke his foot, like, had to overcome that adversity. You're talking about, your protocols in terms of being a football player at Notre Dame. And I'm not, like, again, I don't have a strong opinion, but there's a logical statement that says, I don't need to be physically assaulted in order to play a sport.
That's
right. Like I'm not saying that, again, I don't have a strong opinion, but the logical mind would say, I don't think that I need to get my ass whipped in order to be able to play volleyball or lacrosse or whatever. Like, we're going to take beatings on the court. We're going to fight for each other. But the idea of, like, this fabricate, and that's a lot of the argument about fraternity, not to say anything negative, but, like, there's this perception that it's this, like, fabricated adversity that's imposed in order to prove that you deserve to be a part of it. And the logical mind would say, why do I need to be physically assaulted to prove that I'm committed to this thing that doesn't require physical capabilities?
Fair, but it does require it if the process calls for it. And here's the chaos and the clarity. This is why I think people just keep their mouth shut. Now, the clarity came by way of a whistleblower who has spent several years there and didn't decide to disclose until he was gone. And I'm going to say it, and I don't know him, but it just seems like I didn't write the movie, but the movie makes sense that he might have arguably had an axe to grind. That's how
that's a totally different point. I'm just trying to say, like, I was just addressing, you kind of raised 3 different points. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just saying that, like, to the people that are fake outraged, as you would call it, like, I can't totally tell somebody that they're wrong for thinking that being sexually assaulted is a requirement or a prerequisite for being able to play a sport.
Right. Yeah.
And let me be clear
That's
and
why
go
I
on
hate
record and
clarity.
say I'm not trying to say that that's cool and that they should do that. What I talk about was
Get out of here
fake
with
outrage.
these disclaimers, man.
I got to do that now because I don't want people to say, "Man, Reg is on there talking about he was cool with the dry hump." I'm not cool with the dry hump. Right? Let's just say I'm not cool with that. I'm just
On any circumstance.
I'm not interested. That's
Even with consent, dry humping, like
it's terrible.
why?
It was a waste of time when we were in high school. It was a waste of time, So at the end of the day, I'm not trying to make light of that. If that situation happened, allegedly happened, right? But my point is when I talk about the fake outrage is when you start to see these people that come forward, people say we want to have the internal review report made public. Why? Why does it matter that you know what actually happened at Northwestern? Why on earth do you need to know that? Nobody. Then we have 265 professors at Northwestern sign a petition that we should halt the building of the new stadium. Why? I mean, okay, if this happened,
that's the chaos and clarity.
That's the bullshit.
That's
the fake outrage. Oh, this is terrible. We shouldn't be building a stadium. Okay, they fired the head coach that supposedly is the one who's guilty for it. They got monitors in the locker room now, so it's never going to happen again, whatever. So you're saying 3 years from now when the stadium is built, these future players that you feel were the victims that you're outraged for, they shouldn't be able to play in a new stadium? Because it's all fake outrage. You just are mad about football in general and you're doing whatever. You don't care about what happened. And that's the thing is like, why are you thinking those are two totally unrelated events? The fact that you're going to build a stadium in 2 years and the fact that something happened from what we're seeing, all the accusations are people that have graduated years ago.
You forgot to say alleged on that one.
Allegedly. All the alleged victims are gone from the school, and they all supposedly got assaulted when they were freshmen. So now we're going further and further back about when this could have happened. But now you said, let's not build a stadium next year. Fake outrage. That's all I'm saying.
I won't go as far as call it fake outrage. I think that outrage is real. I just think that we should have had a certain there's a code of honor, right? Like you said, man, yada, yada, yada about becoming a Q. There's no way that I'm going to respond with book, chapter, and verse, man, this is what I went through. Because that's none of your business. That's no one's business. But there is a code of honor amongst our fraternity and our brotherhood that will not allow me to reveal certain things. And here's my challenge with the clarity that we have. We have information that if we didn't have it, would not have provoked this chaos. And people are saying that if you didn't have the toxic masculinity, try to say that 5 times. If you didn't have the toxic masculinity, all of this wouldn't have happened from the beginning. I challenge that and say, if we didn't have this exposure, that we didn't need the information, then we wouldn't be having this convoluted conversation about what's acceptable and what's not with these gray line areas when it comes to hazing. That's why I call the chaos and the clarity, because we're being forced to have a conversation led by people that have never been in those shoes. And hence, fraternities and sororities, if we're going to use that as the analogy, the brothers and the sisters, the bros and the soros that are doing it right, certain things ain't nobody ever going to know, period.
It ain't their business.
It ain't their business. And so that's where I'm struggling with what the conversation has become. As I talked about it, life ain't fair. Yeah, that thing happened as happenstance, but it happened at the time my son broke his foot, where he'd been training every morning at 6:30. Everybody didn't know that. He's about to have the summer of his life. He was aiming for, I want to be the number 1 player in the country this year. And he had just got accepted by 3 showcases. We had the summer plans, the calendar, such that everybody was going to know at the end of the summer who this kid was. And so I told him, you probably have had a feeling or two like, man, life ain't fair. And I'm here to tell you, as your dad, you're right. That shit ain't fair. Accept it. Recover, heal, keep working harder, and then go make a better summer next summer. Right? But the narrative has become more about this hazing thing, and it's just not fair to the kids and the victims. And because there's chaos in this clarity, we shouldn't know all the information. I do want to protect people. I don't think people should be victims of sexual assault. I'm not saying that either, to piggyback off of Big Flo's disclaimers. But there's certain shit that everybody shouldn't know. And that's
all the
I'll
people
leave
who
it
dropped out of line and kept their mouth shut. Shout out to all of them.
And that's rare. Most time you hear about hazing from somebody who couldn't make it through the process. We heard about this hazing from somebody who couldn't finish the job and go through the finish line with his teammates or classmates that had to leave for whatever reason.
And for the record, he's not claiming to have been hazed himself. That's the part of it that makes it worse.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're belaboring this, but just
I said you got to do this last. I told you I'll talk for 45 minutes about this.
Yeah, it's like, but just because somebody didn't make it through doesn't mean that they just were weaker than someone else. Like sometimes people get a little bit more than others. Sometimes,
or they're just not. It's just not worth it to them, and that's fair too.
So look, at the end of the day, I think we're all kind of saying, the same thing. Like it's case by case, and ultimately, like you can't judge from the outside looking in. And the reality is, with more information now and more transparency, as a society, we always want to impose judgment on other people's scenarios, and everybody. The court of public opinion is the judge, jury, and executioner at this point. Cancel culture is a result of us having new information about private situations.
I'll say this because I do agree with you. You said that it's not one size fit all. My big brother was already a bruh when I was going through my process. That's a badge of honor in terms of fraternity and sorority life to be legacy. But in order to get it, sometimes you got to endure and even.
Sometimes, allegedly, rumor has it.
Rumor has it. And again, it goes back to my statement to my son. Life ain't fair. It's just not. It's never going to be fair. And I think that's where I have an issue with our conversation and the narrative as a country, is because we treat it like this shit's fair when we know it's not. Right. And you talked about the protesting and kneeling. I saw a meme that said, racism is such an intricate part of America. It's so connected to America that when you protest racism, people say you're being unpatriotic. And it's like, damn, that's just kind of like, it's kind of deep, right? It's such a part of, but to the naked eye, right? The narrative then spins off into. Well, let me add some levity to this, because before we started, the Big Flow Show had the audacity to try to call me ugly, but he didn't say ugly. How'd you say? What is it called?
Feature heavy.
Feature heavy.
It's just observation.
Observation. So, but that's how you describe
feature heavy.
That's how you call somebody ugly. Feature heavy. And I think that's where we are in terms of this topic, because we are so feature heavy. It's ugly. Right?
There's so much does, right? They put makeup to soften the line.
Too many features. We don't need every feature detail of every situation, because the chaos is in the clarity. Let's hop into quickly, man, because there's some other clarity. The clarity is, simply put, the Pac-12 is screwed. Coach Prime and the Board of Regents at the University of Colorado, let's call them the Buffaloes, as they are called, their mascot, the Buffaloes, have added yet another blow to the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 seems doomed. There is chaos and clarity. Truth be told, after losing not one, not two, but three of its premier teams, Colorado being probably the hottest ticket in the Pac-12.
They're probably excited to be called premier team, though.
They're terrible. They won 11, but I'm saying premier because of Coach Prime. Premier because of Coach Prime. I'll add that disclaimer. Right? Yeah. But now another team that warrants a lot of ticket sales, that warrants a lot of revenue, is leaving. Is the Pac-12 finished, man? Stick a fork in them. This musical chairs of conference realignment makes me want to go even further and say just conferences in general might be screwed. Stick a fork in them. Quickly, since we stayed so long on the previous topic, quickly, I'll go with you on this one first, ETP. Coach Prime and his Buffaloes getting out of there. Pac-12, yet the latest team to leave. What does this say about not only the Pac-12, but this conference Wild Wild West? I'll start with you on it, ETP.
I mean, it's just I think regardless of the teams or the conferences, it's really just this continuous land grab of, truly professionalizing collegiate football or collegiate sports, where they're jockeying for position, and the Big 12 seems to be the power broker at this point, and the SEC is another, and we'll see if I think the end game is one major powerful conference that is ultimately going to be the NFL Development League, and then the rest will be the NCAA. So it's interesting to watch. I think these are all just incremental steps towards one kind of powerhouse, quote unquote, conference or league of maybe 30, 40 teams, collegiately, and then the rest will be in the NCAA, and those will be ones that subscribe to Title IX and have more equity across sports. But the this
heavy hitters,
semi-pro league is just gonna ultimately be about the commercialism.
If not, then they'll probably be displaced because OTE, that's a basketball alternative to collegiate sport, but they've given us sort of this recipe of why not some football operation doing the same thing. Big Flow Show, I'll throw it to you on that, man, before we get out of here. Pac-12 and before we get out of this topic. The Pac-12 conference realignment, nobody is loyal to anybody anymore. It used to be a big thing that our first goal is to win the conference. You ain't heard nobody from no school say that, and I don't know how long. You get hell with the conference. Our goal is to get to the Final Four and be one of those college football playoff teams. Where do you think we're heading with all of this?
I do find it kind of interesting that now that we're going to have an expanded playoffs, it's kind of the first year that the Big 12 is going to really, all those people are leaving. You almost would think that it would make more sense to stay if your goal is to make it to the playoffs, because winning the Pac-12, probably I said the Big 12, I mean, the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is so weak now, you might want to sit there and see if you can't go in there and steal a bid. Like, they're going to have to get some sort of an automatic bid, but I don't know. I'm confused as to why they didn't expand. They were saying that some of the teams they were going to add weakened the brand when it came to their contract, but just there's strength in numbers. San Diego State, I believe Boise State was going to be involved in that.
Right.
Some of these different schools, was like 4 schools that they said they were going to get in, and then they didn't let them in. Now they're down to 9. One more leaves and they're done. Right. They're going to beg the Mountain West to be part of it, or they're going to try to take what's left over and join the Pac-12 or the Big 12 and make it into some more of a super conference.
Right.
Really, Oregon and Stanford and Washington are the only brands, I think, of any value that anybody would really care about. Arizona State are fine, but I don't think anybody's too concerned about them. Cal is fine, but no one's really too concerned about, they're not really busting down any doors. So I don't know. I think this is a big sign. Colorado being smart to leave first, because I do think that they're using some kind of false hype with Deion a year ago. Nobody cared about Colorado to go anywhere, so they're taking that Deion wave and they moved. I think that was a smart move for them, but I don't know.
Strike while the iron's hot.
It kind of doesn't make sense that we're going towards a Power 2 conference right now, and then we're expanding the playoffs. It seems almost like you'd want more opportunities to go somewhere weak so you could get into the playoffs, but that's just, I haven't looked enough into it to justify it, because now it's going to be like your conference play is going to be like playoff play. I mean, how many teams from the Big Ten and how many teams from the SEC can get in? Why would you want to join a bigger pool to try to get in?
It's even tougher to get into that 12.
I would think so, right?
Yeah.
But
we'll see. It's one big mystery, man. What do you call ugly again?
Feature heavy.
To say
the Pac-12 is feature heavy.
Because what you're saying is feature heavy, and with this particular title, there's chaos and clarity. There's so many features, right? We have so much clarity that we notice the chaos, which is the ugliness. And I ain't saying ugly. I ain't calling nobody ugly. But we notice the feature heaviness of it. And so I just see the ugliness in this, right? As more teams leave, you got to start asking why. I mean, think about the expanded budget for USC and UCLA in order to play in the Big Ten. How much more it's going to cost. Same here with Coach Prime. This is the first time that Colorado has been relevant in the Pac-12 since I don't know how long. Let's go way back to freaking,
Cordell Stewart.
Cordell Stewart, but I was thinking more of what's the running back name?
I took one of those. I took his last lump.
died? I forgot.
No, they came after that when they had Chris Brown. He had like 9 touchdowns again. They were pretty good then too.
They were good. But that was just for a flash in the pan. I mean, relevant, where you knew every year that they were going to be some bad boys. I can't believe I can't think of the running back that died from Colorado. But that's when they were good. Rashawn Salam. But
same lump as Cordell Stewart we took.
And that to me is like, as soon as you become relevant again, you're out. It's very feature heavy and show how Eric Bieniemy was a bad man too. But Rashawn Salam's the one who I think passed away. But it just shows the warts. They're feature heavy. And that conference is in deep trouble. We'll say that. Let's hop into some contracts, man, because we are talking about conference realignment, but this week has been highlighted by contracts. I'm talking about huge, monster, mega deal contracts. And when we initially started talking about this topic, there's no way in a million years that I thought the feature, the captain, the quarterback of this segment would be an NBA player who struggles to dribble to his left. Has become the highest paid, and yeah, I'm stepping on your toes, ETP, the highest paid contract ever, Jaylen Brown. People are trying to make jokes about what the Celtics are doing, just throwing away money. We know Jason Tatum's money is coming because Jaylen Brown having now the largest contract in NBA history and not even being the best player on that team. ETP, how dare I not go to you first on this? I'm happy for Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown has also shown a path how he's going to get back and rock out, my brother. Masked man in the black mask and all of that with the braids. It looked like he got little, I ain't going to put no name on it. Got somebody to do it right in the back of her house. That's what his braids look like. That man is the highest paid man in NBA history. ETP, as a Celtics fan, all things Boston. Are you celebrating this? And what becomes the expectations when you pay a man 5 years, $304 million? So he's getting over 60 a year. And it has been accepted widely, maybe not by Jaylen Brown, that when it comes to his ball handling skills, pause, sometimes it's real feature heavy. It gets ugly when he's trying to create at the end of a shot clock because people know he has some issues with his dribbling skills. That man
got if he had left hand.
That man can't go. He can't drive left. That man getting $304 million. What do you say as a Celtics fan? Give me some glimpse into why Celtics fans might be or maybe not celebrating this.
I mean, I'm not celebrating it because I don't think I'm gonna get a dime of that $304 million.
Fair.
But
I don't know, but he giving it away.
He did say
no fake outrage or enthusiasm from my man over here. I appreciate it.
I do appreciate it.
So what I do celebrate from a messaging standpoint is he did a press conference after he signed the deal, and he said that he's committed. Not just in Boston, but in general, he wants to invest in bridging the wealth gap between the Black community and, I guess, the white community. And as somebody that signs a deal of that size to have that philosophy, I can celebrate that, where you're talking, regardless of race, regardless of communities, the idea that you're looking at trying to find or add or contribute to the solution of equality financially. I celebrate that. I support that. And regardless of who says that, it's good that somebody that is very much a recipient and a beneficiary of capitalism to have that perspective is encouraging. That being said, it's interesting that he's the highest paid player in the NBA right now when he's not even in the top 15. He's not the quote unquote best player on his team. But we saw this. Mike Conley signed the biggest deal in NBA history. I don't know, maybe 7-8 years ago. I don't know how. I think he's been an all-star maybe once. So it's just a matter of timing, right? LaMelo Ball signed a $260 million deal, rookie max contract. Tyrese Halliburton. So you have these kind of unique situations. Jason Tatum's going to be eligible for $340 million deal after this coming season. So he's not going to be the highest paid player for long. I think it's just a function of how much money there is in the NBA, how much money there is in sports. Like, these leagues used to be recreational activities and write-offs for major CEOs and business owners as a status symbol. Now they are some of the most profitable businesses in the world. So it just is it's showing how much sports has grown. But I don't know. I'm not worried about them signing. If I'm looking at it as a sports fan for the Celtics, I'm glad they kept Jaylen Brown. I think they made other very poor decisions as an organization. So if they had gotten rid of Jaylen Brown, I don't know that I would have celebrated, or if they had not signed him, I don't know if I would have celebrated or been upset. But he's young. He can be around for a long time. But even after signing that deal, he might demand a trade after next season.
How about the parody thing? What's the thing called? The sports parody, not the Onion, but the equivalent that talked about basically projected this exact same contract.
So Butt Crack Sports. I was actually tricked by it. Butt Crack Sports. They have a Twitter handle.
Butt Crack Sports, because why?
And they post all this parody, information all the time about something that a team player, a player said or a coach said. I think a lot went around when they said, I think Steve Kerr, the fake quote of I like both LeBron and Jordan equally. They both gave me three rings.
Yeah,
so, but 2 weeks ago they posted that Jaylen Brown signed a $304 million deal, and I'm sending it to everybody like, this is crazy. And then found out that it was a parody account, and then 2 weeks later they end up, it ended up becoming fact. So I don't know if this parody account is really actually just doing some investigative reporting, or it's that comedic that he signed that deal.
Right. Does life imitate art, or art imitate life? That's the NBA version of it. But then Big Flo showed some people got paid in the NFL too. Start with the quarterbacks. Now it's funny because as we talk about Jaylen Brown, we say $304 million. That means he's going to make $304 million. When you talk about the NFL, just to show the difference, sort of these two sports, the one that's more dangerous, that could lead to you sipping out a straw for the rest of your life, or more likely to lead to that because of the impact. That one doesn't have guaranteed contracts. The other one does. But the big
I'm not guaranteed you're going to make it.
Right.
We both taking some risk. You know what? Why should you take all the risk? I'm taking some risk too. So we're gonna go back and say you're not gonna make it. So I don't think you're gonna make it.
It's just anyway. I digress. But Justin Herbert signed a 5-year, $262 million deal. He's the quarterback. That's my quarterback. $218.7 million guaranteed. And in the NFL, because to your point, ETP, it's just a timing mechanism in the NBA. Jaylen Brown just happened to have his contract signed this week. There's going to be people that have contracts coming up that are going to be much bigger because of the timing. They just are waiting. They're in the shadows waiting to have a bigger deal than Jaylen Brown. Same thing with Justin Herbert, because Justin Herbert's deal has put Joe Burrow in a situation that they're saying he's going to get over $300 million to play football. What did you think with Justin Herbert and those type of numbers? And where does this go? Because in the same world that you got Justin Herbert and what's imminent now, Joe Burrow getting these $300 million deals. In that same world, you got running backs playing for a pack of Twizzlers and a bus pass. What does that say about the NFL? Throw it to you on this one, Big Flo Show.
I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. We ran through some of the numbers before here. So shout out to Justin. I'm not going to hate on him. He's a very good budding quarterback. I don't think he's the best quarterback. So just like in the Jaylen Brown situation, there's other owners shaking their head like, damn, it's about to cost. Your contract about to cost me a lot of money because how can I justify not going here? So I'm a little frustrated to see Lamar Jackson got way less guarantee and a little bit less money in the contract, but not my money. So I will not let my outrage become fake. So I look at that. But then when you look at some of these running backs, Saquon Barkley, just they gave him a 1 year, $11 million deal. And you look at how these receivers are getting paid, these other people are getting paid. And some of these running backs, I think we used to ask you, had more receptions than, he had more receptions last year than Tyreek Hill's highest season ever.
Oh, you're talking about Eckers, Austin Eckers.
What I call? What's the asking you? Sorry, Eckers.
Austin Eckers. Yeah, I put it together. It's contraction.
I need help, man. It's Texas Village.
Austin Eckers.
That's why I have Ivy League partners on the show just to make sure you get my names right. But Austin Eckers had more receptions than Tyreek Hill, and by the way, carried the ball and blocked while they threw the ball to other people. And you don't want to give this man any money. It doesn't make sense. If I'm a running back today in this world, I'm just going to tell people I'm a slot. I'm switching to slot, and I'm going out there and trying off.
That's the Deebo Samuel. Mm-hmm. Deebo Samuel said, "I'm a wide back." Why? Yep. Because he was like, "I ain't trying to be running back. They ain't paying them people over there." It just goes to show. And look, by the way, the sport with non-guaranteed contracts, although it's the more dangerous sport, the position that requires the players to endure probably more contact and take even more risk is the one that ain't nobody paying. So I guess if you're talking about value, talking about risk, it makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense because these are the guys that's going out there taking the highest risk. To your point, you mentioned Austin Eckers. Austin Eckers is so bad with running back. Austin Eckers organized a Zoom meeting. You know it got to be bad when in the NFL, they get ready for training camp, and this man has organized a Zoom meeting. He brought all of these running backs into the Zoom meeting. You can imagine the squares. He has some NFL reps in there. But he has Alvin Kamara in the Zoom. Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker III, Miles Sanders, Damian Harris, Ezekiel Elliott, David Montgomery. And now they is in the Zoom meeting talking about just how messed up it is. And I don't know why you would put your son at running back. Because the crazy part, to reconcile that with you football, everybody want to play running back. You shouldn't want to play running back anymore. If you want to have a long-term view of making money that you can change your family's generational wealth trajectory, running back, stay away from running back. But there is chaos and clarity. And the clarity, because they tell you, if you want to really know the truth, follow the money. The clarity in this is that there's real chaos in how we do these contracts. I don't think any of them are going to necessarily get paid. You got Ekeler, who organized a Zoom meeting. You got Saquon Barkley, who is like, I'm cool with y'all on your Zoom meeting, but I'm about to take this money. Instead of taking the franchise tag, he negotiated and made basically $3 extra to do a 1-year deal, which is essentially a franchise tag from a financial standpoint. He got paid almost the exact same amount of money. You got Josh Jacobs, right? You got Tony Pollard. And then the breaking news today. Breaking news. Jonathan Taylor didn't get paid. They decided not to give him his contract. Jim Irsay had all that to say and said, I wasn't talking about Jonathan Taylor. It's just, for those out there who got your son playing running back, man, move that boy to defensive back. Move him to slot wide receiver because there is a lot of chaos and the clarity that they is not trying to pay that position. It is the lowest man on the totem pole. We have seen the names that I just read off. While if you are a fantasy football player, you might know those names. But those ain't household names. I'm assuming, though, for Austin Ekeler, these were power brokers when it comes to running backs. I haven't seen any of those people named in that Zoom meeting that have like a national spokesperson for a particular brand. Maybe Ezekiel Elliott still holding on to something. I think he was Campbell Soup or something, but I haven't seen those in a while. They're the bottom of the totem pole. We've seen several Amazon drivers turn into, 1,000-yard rushers in the same year. And so the running back position, the evolution of what we're doing offensively has put us in this really interesting position that the chaos and the clarity is that value has been stripped from the position as the offense evolves. I'll give anybody last word on it before we get to even bigger deals. Anybody got last word on it before we move on?
No, man.
I mean, it's interesting to me because it's like not only are they not offering contracts, like why didn't the Giants say, cool, we'll give you 6 years, 100 million, whatever the number, whatever, 150 million, and just not guarantee any of it, right? Like ultimately, because the whole thing with running backs is durability, but it's not even just about the durability. They're like, you're not valuable enough for it in the grand scheme of the offense at this point. And ultimately, like, what do? Do you just essentially, are we just going to have empty sets and it's just 5 receiver sets and there's no more running back? Like, is that where we're going? The average salary of a running back is lower than a kicker in the NFL at this point. Like, factually.
I know they showed that.
Like, that's crazy.
That's trash.
Yeah. That's wild, and it's showing that the highest paid running back is a rookie on a rookie deal. It's just amazing, man. We'll see what happens, but let's get into some bigger contracts. So we started just talking about sports contracts, Moneyball season. There's some huge contracts out there. And I don't know who this is with these crazy comments, but I think what sports has shown us, and we talk about life ain't fair and the hazing, and I talk about sort of how that has prepared me for other situations. Sports also taught us how to ignore distractions, because if you always look at every shiny light that passes, there's no way you can go on the field and do your thing. So let me make sure I focus. The bigger deals that I want to talk about first is Shohei Ohtani, who is doing Martian-like things in baseball. Not only is he a bad man from that mound as a pitcher, he can go and do amazing things from the plate. That Shohei Ohtani, who was rumored to be in a situation where they were shopping him, the Angels. Now it seems like he'll be staying. But as a free agent, it is projected he's going to make more money than most people can print. Guaranteed contracts. The chaos and the clarity here is, when you look at football, the most dangerous sport, you look at running back, one of the most dangerous positions in football, because playing offense and defensive line, the rampant impact is also dangerous long term. But in terms of your current career, running back being one of the most dangerous positions, right? The chaos and that clarity is that we're seeing where the real value is. And while I love the game of football, I love it to death. When you know what Shohei Ohtani is probably, I'm afraid to say what number he's going to make. Then you got Mbappè. Anybody that's so cold, you just call him by one name, you know he a bad man.
He can afford 2 names now if he really
He could buy a name. You know what I mean? Mbappè is rumored to have turned down, and I can't even believe I'm going to say this. I struggle with even saying this, but rumored to have turned down what could have amounted to $1.1 billion in 1 year revenue. Like, that's crazy to me. Those are real dollars. But it also shows, and I've argued several times, football versus football, what we play Neanderthal sport. The whole world watches football. Mbappé being able to turn down $1.1 billion, right? In the same
taxes,
breath.
What is it anyway?
With taxes, round up, round down. In the same breath, right? Imagine that. Imagine that. Having the ability to turn down $1.1 billion in the same breath that Saquon essentially had to cross the picket line, right? To take what he took, he basically, man, y'all cool. I hear you. I'm about to go make this little bit of money.
Imagine how good Saquon would have been at soccer if he played soccer.
And we lose our best athletes, man. It just puts really the chaos and that clarity is just it's baffling. To turn down $1.1 billion?
Not interested.
Not interested. I'm good. Now, there was some people say because it was a Saudi team and all those things, there's some socio-political components to that, to maybe why he chose that. And he's an international, global superstar. So just like I rattled off those names of Zoom participants in the running back room, we barely knew who they were. Mbappé is a household name in every household, basically on the planet Earth. So there is some don't devalue your marketability by partnering with the wrong partner. But 1.1 billion, y'all could have called me a traitor. You could have called me whatever you wanted to call me. Call me whatever you want to call me. I'm taking 1.1 billion.
So I just want to raise something where if it's a moral decision, he plays in the World Cup for France, and France still collects money from I think it's 14 African countries and controls the economy after independence. So if we're talking about like who's righteous and who you shouldn't play for, like
Fair.
we need to know history and understand the reality of like what these economies work with, because Saudi Arabia seems to get all this. They get all this, negative publicity, but colonialism is a hell of a thing, and it's not over.
Chaos and clarity. My gosh, ETP, that's how you feel? That's a pretty big statement.
That's not how I feel. I'm saying I'm not saying he shouldn't have taken the money.
Of Haiti, that's how I feel about France too. I root against them and everything. I hate France. I don't want nothing to do with France. And if you listen from France, I don't care. So what? The bottom line is y'all ruined my family's country with the same exact reparations you made them pay you for slavery. So I'm not a big fan of France. But you go make whatever your beliefs are, start a charity. You got $1 billion. Start a charity.
Start an island. Start a nation. Do whatever.
I mean, the police take drug money and they do public service stuff with it, right? They don't just burn the money, right? They take the money the bad money off the street, and then they build parks, right? Do the same thing.
Sound like Jaylen Brown with them sorry ass Celtics, right? Don't worry about the source. He's doing good things with that money. I got you. I'm with you. I'm picking up what you're putting down, my brother. That's just you. Let's hop into the fight, man, because Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence is finally going to happen. And it's Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. They haggled back and forth with who is the A side versus the B side.
I learned a lot today.
You learned a lot today. That was a big thing. That's what led to, like, this fight is several years in the making, right? You got Spence, who's 28-0 with 22 knockouts. You got Crawford, who's 39-0 with 30 knockouts, both undefeated, right? But Spence holds all three, WBC, WBA, and IBF welterweight. Crawford, his only belt is he owns the WBO championship. They finally got the deal done. But the chaos and this clarity, right? Because people wanted to really dog Money Mayweather because they say he picked his fight. But the clarity, right, here that they had to haggle over this, the clarity that it was over something as simple as the A side of the fight, the clarity that this will probably be their biggest payday, the clarity in what the distribution of the belts is also shows you the chaos in that sport. Because whoever loses, let's say it's not a very evenly fought fight. Whoever loses is going to be at the height of boxing. The fight is Saturday. If it's a one-sided fight that doesn't demand a rematch and create another revenue opportunity, whoever loses, their career, for all intents and purposes, I ain't gonna say it's over with.
Impacted.
Significantly impacted. They go from caviar to McDonald's when it comes to their income potential in boxing. And so the more that that's the case, it's winner take all, and the other person's career is basically not over, but they're they still gonna eat, right? McDonald's is still food that you can buy, but it ain't caviar. And I think that's the difference between boxing, traditional boxing as we know it, and UFC. You can lose in UFC and get another money-making fight next week, right? But when it comes to boxing, it's like the stakes are so high. And it creates this environment where we've got to wait this long for a fight like Terrence Crawford and Bud Spence. I don't know where you're going to watch the fight, but I know the entire boxing world will be watching this fight because we've been waiting for years. From a business model, do we think that's good or bad? Because from a purist standpoint, the pugilists, the people who really love boxing, we say we've been denied. People blame Floyd Mayweather for denying us the opportunity to see him fight some of the greats. But the reality is, from a business structure, it never made sense for him to take the risk of going anything but 50-0 because that's where his value was. I'll start with you on this one, Big Flow Show.
I think, we can't view, because there's no league in boxing. There's no teams. There's whatever. It's just an individual. It's just handling your own sport and doing whatever. There's no guarantee. There's no minimum wage. There's no, union. There might be a union, but there's nothing. There's nothing but you. So you got to handle it more like you handle an entertainment industry than any other sport, right? Because leagues have to play. You got to play. The Bears have to play Green Bay, and we have to find out who wins. And if next year we change the team up, that's the brand.
We got to find out who wins. You try to sneak that in. Ain't nobody worried about no Bears. You're not going to beat nobody.
Come on,
Bears.
Without irrelevant? Well, come on, man. We got at least. All right, Jets play the Giants. You want to know who wins the game. Bottom line is you got to play. That's the product. The league is the product. When you're a boxer, you're a league of your own. You're just by yourself. So you have to manage. As much as it's frustrating as a fan to not see the best people fight each other. But, imagine if these guys, okay, they're going to get a huge payday. I don't know what the purse is.
Both will make over $10 million for this. Tens of millions. Yeah. But, I mean,
sure.
Right? Like we're in the welterweight division. Boxing is struggling. That's still a lot of money. Tens of millions.
It's more money than I'm going to make for this show, for instance. But I'm just going to say, if you think about something like how much
Floyd Mayweather, the 10 part, man. You ain't got. I might put $10. I'll shoot you 10.
I want my $10. Floyd Mayweather, he making $100 million for a fight. So
he made once. I don't think he made several hundred. He made.
In fact, he made it once. That's 10 fights. So if this fight doesn't, you get your $10 million for this fight. If you guys had this fight 5 years ago or whenever we start talking about it, the trajectory of the loser goes a different direction, and they never get to this $10 million fight for each other. So it's I think these guys probably talking and say, no, we need to fight in 3 years. They need to dodge each other. It's in everybody's best interest to do it. So we can get mad, but there's just more. Anytime there's a sport that the judges decide who wins, it's not a score or different things like that. There's got to be some sort of different element here. So I can't be mad at them. I'm gonna try to find a way to watch.
You just kind of threw a conspiracy theory out there kind of quickly, like
nah. It's just there's so much to it, man.
In there,
boxing. And if you don't knock the dude out, there's so much to boxing. Like you could go fight somebody, you got to figure out where you want to fight them because you don't know what the judges are going to be like. And if you don't think you can knock this dude out, you can beat the dude and just lose.
There's a lot of subjectivity in it. There's subjectivity in foul calls in the NBA.
There is, but if you come out, there is, and it could get ridiculous. But to be the robberies that you see in boxing, in basketball, I guess you could argue some of the non-pass interference calls, but still came down to one touchdown. That was a good game, and it came down to this call over that call.
Fair.
But you're in boxing, you look and see the fight like I whooped this dude, and they say you lost by 3 rounds.
And the extreme differences between the scorecards. Like, how can one score 118 to 115, and then the other one, like, especially with all the technology, I agree with you. But what I like about the fight, both Terrence Crawford and Bud Spence showed up at the grand arrival with black Air Force Ones. It's crunk when both of them show up with they on that time, man. We know what black Air Force Ones. That's why we all got on our black tees today, y'all. We on that time. It's the summer. Everybody got this sports love, and the Ball Hog Sports Talk still bringing you that fire. We on black Air Force One time. That's what we on right now. ETP, you're looking forward to fight. Are you guys going to a fight party? You got Bud Spence. You got Terrence Crawford. I'm sorry, I got to say it the right way since they haggled over who's the A side. Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. Where are you going to watch the fight? Are you looking forward to it? They got black Air Force Ones. Is this all of the hype, all of the years we waited for this? Is it going to be worth it? And is it going to save boxing because I gotta tell y'all, man, this UFC stuff is taking off. ETP, understanding the business of things, knowing that scarcity can be good when it comes to the whole price and quantity and the demand of anything, and what that means for what you can charge. Is this the moment that boxing does an about face, recovers itself, it resuscitates? Say that faster. It resuscitates boxing. Is this the one? What say you? No pressure.
It's definitely not the one. I mean, boxing's been on the decline. Boxing, if you don't have heavyweights that are a draw, even with that, more recently, Tyson Fury and Wilder and all that, but I don't think, this isn't gonna change the game. It's a hyped fight. I think, the delays and all that, and I think, like you said, it all gets architected. I think back to Mayweather, Pacquiao, and it just it happened too late. When it could have happened, and it could have actually been a major event. It still was, but it lost a lot of the steam. So it kind of has a complexion of that. But welterweight boxing is not going to save the boxing industry. Celebrity boxing has actually resuscitated the boxing industry more so than welterweight or underweight boxing, compared to heavyweight. But without big heavyweights that are, that have star power and can knock people down, boxing is just going to continue to be a little bit more of a declining sport, I think.
Let me know what you're doing, man. We are close enough. We can watch the match together. Big Flow Show, are you going to go watch the fight? Are you going to a fight party?
I'm going to try to find some place to go watch the fight. I think it's worth doing. I got some graduation parties this weekend. One of them ends suspiciously early. Sound like he don't want to buy the fight. He want to give everybody a chance to get home about the fight. So I'm going to be on him. So Dion,
you just call him cheap. You just called your man cheap because he ended his
D,
party early.
You hear me? I know you watching the show, D. There's a reason why you ended that party a little early.
ETP.
We're going to watch.
That's messed up. You going to it? That's why you don't invite people over, boy. Just ungrateful. You cheap.
I'm coming though. We coming though. We did RSVP. We coming, man. We gonna say what you baby girl want for graduation.
ETP, are you going to a fight party? If not, man, I think it shows something. Have you any plans to go to a fight party?
I don't have any plans, so I don't know anybody that's doing it. It might come up. Sometimes I get invited last minute, but I'm not going anywhere. It's weird now. Like now there's cover charges if you want to go out. I remember back in the day it was
at the house.
No, not at that. Well, sometimes people,
public venue.
I'm talking about at a bar or something.
Hey man, gonna put $10 in.
But to their point, because we're talking about business structure and the revenue model, there is what pay-per-view figured out is
right.
I can't allow you to host this fight party,
right?
And everybody come watch the fight because I only get one unit there. Yep. So they're charging them and based on maximum capacity,
right?
And so a lot of public venues don't even offer it now. Yep. Now, nod and salute from a business standpoint to pay-per-view for understanding how to get your hands out my pocket. But I think it has ruined some of the social element of what it meant to just go to a fight party.
Yeah.
So I'll take that. I won't blame boxing. I'll say it's more on the new structure and trying to go public. But a big fight, we used to always have plans. Going to a fight party. We ain't got that. So how big is the fight?
Yeah.
But I'll go out on this, man, because we got the Ball Hawk Sports Talk spotlight moment. Before we get out of here, I'll start with you, ETP. Ball Hawk spotlight moment. You know what it is. I pass the ball to you. All eyes on you. Middle of the court. We need a bucket. You got to pick a topic from sports, business, entertainment, a highlight that you have found that we didn't talk about today, but you know that all the people got, and let me ask before I throw it to you. For our audience, chime in. Are you going to a fight party? Where are you going to watch? Crawford, Spence, do you have plans? What does that mean for boxing in general? And now, I throw the ball to you. Ball Hawk, spotlight moment, ETP, middle of the court. We need a bucket. What is it going to be from sports, business, and entertainment? What you going to send the home people home with? What you got?
Just got to call out the global sporting event, which is the Women's FIFA World Cup happening in Australia and New Zealand. The U.S. looking to claim another victory. They just actually tied the Netherlands, who they played in the final last year. So it looked like in the first half they were, on their heels, and then they had a corner kick and kind of breathed new life into the team. But it was an exciting match. Hopefully they can make it pretty deep. I think the most interesting thing to me is watching Rodman run around in a soccer uniform. So to see the legacy of an elite athlete, his daughter Trinity Rodman in soccer, it's a good sight to see. So I'm thinking maybe I'll get a jersey.
Some good genes right there. The Worms daughter. Absolutely, man. Shout out to them, man. Good luck to the ladies. I know that they were down 1-0 and came back to the Netherlands, and that's dope. They had never been down or hadn't been down, and I don't know how many iterations of World Cup. So I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. Let's go, ladies. ETP is now passing the ball over to the Big Flow Show. It's the Ball Hawk Spotlight moment. You got the ball in the middle of the court.
I like how you did that.
All lights on you.
That way.
I like how you did that. Yeah, no.
Like I did that.
So yeah,
what you got?
Shout out to the basketball tournament. First of all, for just taking a regular name and turning it into a trademark. That's fantastic.
Like the Washington football team.
I love that. I wish they stayed
the
there.
basketball tournament. There's
the
something
basketball
brilliant
tournament.
in
Are you watching the basketball tournament? Because they know people like you watching the basketball tournament. Let's just stop there. We just stopped there. So
they
I
probably
like
just got tired. They're like, look, with the brainstorming has got to end.
Right.
We're not calling it anything.
And somehow it wasn't taken.
Yeah.
So they said, let's just go with the basketball tournament. So shout out to them for that. It's good basketball. It's entertaining to watch. I didn't know until you guys told me that some of these guys play overseas, because I'm like, are these many guys working in corporate America that can still take you to the cup and dunk with someone on their shoulder? It's just a travesty if some of these dudes are not getting paid to play. But shout out to them for saying winner takes all. We're going to put up $1 million. We're going to go multi-week tournament. I think it's a multi-week tournament. We're going to have all these teams come in, do all this different stuff. They probably make them pay an entry fee, and the winner splits $1 million. We pay nothing. That's great.
No, because they on ESPN stream.
That's like women's sports.
They getting real money.
Yeah,
They real getting real. I watch several games. They getting real advertising dollars.
It's at least as entertaining as a summer league, if not more.
Facts.
At least as entertainment as a summer league. And then they changed it. They made, I think they're the ones that started playing to a certain number as opposed to playing.
What do they call it? The Elam ending.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and the summer leagues took that over, trying to be like the basketball. They want to get sued for that. You can't play. You got to play for a time. You can't play the Elam ending. But yeah, I like it, man. It's been fun. I've been watching it hit or miss. Last few years, I kind of pick it up when it's on. There's not that much else to watch, but that's just me. That's my
The
moment.
Nerd team has a former point guard from Notre Dame, and the chaos and clarity. And you were like, man, these dudes just going to corporate America. The chaos and that clarity is, it's hard to make it in the NBA, bro.
Hard.
Like, you're watching good basketball, and these dudes, whether they're pro-am, play overseas, or they are just Joe Schmoes going to work every day, like, that's good basketball. And it's really hard to make it in the NBA, man, because I seen dudes that look tall. I seen dudes that look quick. I seen dudes that could shoot from half court, and they playing in the TBT. And most of them, all but one team, are going to be playing for free, which is crazy, right? Giving us good entertainment for free. Shout out to them. Great business model. My Ball Hawk Spotlight moment. I'm at half court. All lights on me. We need a bucket. I'm going with NFL training camps, because in today's episode of the Chaos and the Clarity, we've already had several injuries. Jalen Ramsey being one of them, saying he's got to undergo knee injury. We talked about Joe Burrow, Joe Cool, and his almost certain imminent large contract. It will be the largest ever. He just had a calf strain. And NFL training camps really reveal just how dangerous the sport is, but it also shows life ain't fair. We're going to be watching a lot of players make a lot of great plays. A neighbor of mine took his son to the Jets camp. It's like, man, why they got all these people here? It's close to probably 100 people on rosters right now. They got to will it down to 53. Life ain't fair. People don't get the same number of reps. Life ain't fair. A guy that was drafted in the 4th round versus someone who was undrafted, whether You like it or not, when the fourth rounder drops a pass, if we're dealing with wide receivers, it is not as bothersome as the undrafted guy who drops a pass. Life ain't fair.
Maybe they should have just let him dry hump him and they'd be in the league.
Maybe. They're messed up, man. You didn't even add a legend to that, Big Flo. So
Allegedly.
I'm just saying, maybe.
That's messed up, man. That's messed up, Big Flo. I'm with you on this one.
Hey, listen, there's no rule book on how to get to the finish line. There's more than one way to skin a cat.
Trash.
Touche.
Feature heavy ass. Look at them feature heavy statements.
But where I was trying to go with it is life is not fair. That's the chaos and the clarity. We're going to have a lot of clarity. There are going to be these battles that are ensuing within training camps. And the clarity, the truth of it is when you watch it, if you're inside baseball and you get to watch it, there's going to be clarity that one guy's better than the other, but there's chaos in that because decisions are being made based on things that aren't solely on talent. There's a meritocracy, yes, but the meritocracy is subjected to the business of it. And that is the NFL. That is what you're going to see in a lot of these decisions in NFL training camps. But I say in my Ball Hawk Spotlight moment, in this episode of the Chaos and Clarity, shout out to all the young people, young men that are out. I call them young men. I want to call them kids because that means I'm officially old, out chasing their dreams. I wish you nothing but the best of health. And when I say health, physically, but more important than that, mentally, because not everyone's going to be able to secure their dreams. Hopefully you have provided yourself with options outside of just football. It's a dangerous sport. And as we talked about on this show, that comes with an inequitable distribution of money and an equitable distribution of certainty. The most dangerous sport has the most uncertain revenue stream. It is what it is. There's chaos and clarity. Truth being truth, make what you will of the craziness and chaos in it, but it is the truth. That has been sort of this entire episode and dealing with it in the way that we do, dealing with it based on sports, business, entertainment. Today's episode has been brought to you by the Ball Hog Sports Talk. Our crew is essentially where sports, business, and entertainment collide. A few businessmen get together to discuss sports in an entertaining fashion. The Big Flo Show came to you from the Middle Coast. ETP came to you from the East Coast. We all came to you in our black tees because it's our Black Air Force One type weekend and a Black Air Force Type 1 mentality this summer because we don't care about the summer lull. The Ball Hog Sports Talk is going to keep bringing sports to you. I am your boy, B. Brown ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, a.k.a. Mr. Excessive Celebration, a.k.a. Barazy. This is our show. This has been the Chaos and Clarity episode of the Ball Hog Sports Talk, where sports, business, and entertainment collide. Meet us next week. Next Friday, we'll be recording another episode. Don't meet us there. Beat us there. And I ask, in the great words of the great philosopher Martin, did you miss me? Hopefully you did. We will be back next week. We won't be taking a summer Friday. So catch us next week. The Ball Hog Sports Talk coming back to you then. And with that, we is out. Peace.